Hello again, SG Beers. I'm Companion Wolf with another weekly Smile Game Builder tutorial video. In this video, I'm finally covering heads-up display, or HUDs as they're better known, in a consecutive weekly series for various things from a simple item collection, as I did in the Pumpkin Hunt minigame, to something more complex, such as a fatigue, hunger, thirst system. If this is the first video you've watched in my SGB tutorials and showcases series, or if you haven't already, make sure you click the subscribe button to be notified of when I upload new videos. The use of HUDs can display all kinds of information about characters, their direction and coordinates, statuses, and other things you want to display on screen. I've already covered some instances of HUDs in previous tutorials, notably my Compass HUD and Vertex's mini map. Both of those are considered as HUDs because they're overlaid on top of the map. To start off, we'll create a simple item collection HUD. In this case, we'll be collecting herbs, and the number of herbs collected will update on the screen accordingly. So the first thing is you want to create the images you want for the numbers 0 through 9, an optional separator, and also some kind of title or representation of what you're collecting. I've chosen a herb graphic rather than text in this case. And then the first thing we'll create is the event to check and display the number of herbs collected, and also to show them how to show and hide the HUD. Sheet 1 is the HUD's nucleus, where the number of herbs is updated. The event trigger is auto run synchronize, so that it'll constantly run in the background and constantly check if all of the numbers are true and updated accordingly. And when we display the graphic for the herb, it'll all show in the top right hand corner. Next, we'll need to set up a series of conditional branches to determine the number of herbs collected and update that HUD accordingly. I've set up a variable for the number of herbs collected, which is updated each time you harvest a herb. I guess you could also use check held items for this, especially if you want to reduce the number of variables used, thereby increasing the number each time. But I've not tried it. Personally, I prefer using variables because you can be more specific with their variables, with their values, and I found it actually to be a lot more flexible all around. Anyway, you might find it easier to go into text form mode for this. You can copy and paste the branches here. Just remember that you need to click on the line directly below where you want the details to go. To make it easier, I set the maximum number of herbs you can collect as 9, so there are 10 branches in total for 0 all the way through to 9. Of course, if you wanted more than that number, you can always utilize my modular operations tutorial and adjust the numbers for tens and units here using the same methodology. Or you can adopt Soaring Streams method and physically create numbers beyond 9, then add an additional branch for 11, 10, 11, 12, and so on. But I wouldn't recommend using that method for numbers greater than 20, because there will be an awful lot of additional branches required that would take up a considerable amount of real estate. If you want to go that route, however, I suggest using my modulo operations method instead, just for this, so you can identify the units and display the units accordingly, and then display the tens accordingly. I'll go into much greater detail about that in a much later follow-up tutorial, probably one where I do HP or MP or something like that. And then right at the very end, after the branches, if you want to display the number of herbs you need to collect, in addition to the number of herbs you have collected, then just use add another graphic, one for the separator and another one for the static image representing the number here. And finally, set the condition to a switch. In this case, activate HUD is on, and then to hide the HUD afterwards on sheet 2, since it will no longer apply in this case after you've collected and delivered all the herbs. The conditional switch here would be off, and then you delete all of the images you've used. In this case, it would be the herb, the number of herbs, the separator, and the number of herbs you have to collect. And one thing to bear in mind about images is they're literally stacked on top of one another. 0 is the bottommost layer, and then 1 is layered on top of that, which is why the numbers for the collected herbs are all set to graphic 1. And it's the same with 2 and 3. If you were to set the separator graphic to 1 as well, it would supersede the herb number graphic, and it would flicker constantly as it updates from one to the other. Hence, it's better that each component of your HUD does have a separate graphic number. So, for the herbalist who gives the quest in the first place, I've made it where the quest is initiated right away, and then it becomes optional afterwards. So on sheet 1, for the condition, set the local switch off, although this probably isn't necessary because it's off by default. And I've set the trigger, let's go back into the other mode to make it easier. So the trigger is making contact with the player, reacting from one step, and then moving towards the player in the movement pattern. This gives the illusion that as soon as you enter her house, she'll run up to you and proposition you to find her herbs. So in the event details, display the text message. I've set the number of herbs you need to 5. That can change according to your needs, anything from 1 to 9, I guess, or greater than that if you're using multiple image. I guess you could also use a random number here and then replace the number to variable 1 or something like that, but unfortunately the number you set in the check held item branch is fixed, so you're not able to directly add variables to it, or at least without using additional variable checks. Anyway, toggle the HUD and local switches to on, and then on sheet 2 the local switch condition is turned to on. Here there are a series of conditional branches for various options as well. Now the very first one is to check if the number of herbs matches the amount in the inventory. There should definitely be some kind of option here, I think, and in all other conditional checks with fixed numbers to optionally reference a variable. I think this is a for sure requirement, because then it will make things a lot easier. Under yes, you can add your own options, but the main things here to add are variable box to reset the herbs to 0, and then subtract the number you set from the inventory, and then the event switch for the herb quest is finished. Set it to on, and the event switch for activating the HUD, turn it to off. And then under no of this check items branch, we'll add another branch, this time for checking if the herb quest is on. i.e. that it's finished, and then you display a text message. You can add an optional yes or no to collect more. So here it is. If you select yes, she says great, and then the herb quest finished switch must be turned off, and the activate HUD must be turned on again. And then under no, well, no big deal. So what this will do is, if you finish the quest already, she'll come up and she'll ask you, say she needs new herbs, and then you have the option to accept it or refuse it. And then under herb quest finished branch, just display a text like a reminder, do you have any herbs yet? Alternatively, you could also put something like good, you've collected variable 0, since that's the number representing how many herbs you've collected out of 5, or whatever maximum number you've set. Now at this point we can play test it to see how it all works, and then open up the debug window. So the herbalist approaches you right away with her request, and the HUD will appear automatically after this is done. Hey there, I have a favor to ask. Could you help me collect the final 5 herbs I need to complete my potion? So the HUD appears on the top right. Now with the beauty of debug, we can actually set the number of herbs, and then I hit apply, and it'll automatically update. So for the sake of continuity, let's hit 5 so you have the maximum. And again, through the magic of cheating, I already set up an image that gives the player all 5 herbs. So when we speak to her again, Great, thanks. Now I can create my potion. Just a minute. Here, take this for your trouble, and you'll see that it will reset back to 0. And after the quest is done, it'll disappear. So you can talk to her again. Hi, if you're up for it, I could always use some more herbs. And then you have the option to accept or refuse. If you accept, of course, great! And it'll reappear, and then you can collect the herbs and start all over again. Okay, so no one likes a cheater in games, and that's why we'll go outside for the next part and create some herb events. And don't forget to copy and paste the auto run herb event, as we'll need that for the next map as well. And then you just paste it on the map, and it'll pretty much be exactly the same. So to create a blank event, I'll just use one at random. And then you can change the graphic to something more appropriate. If you want a specific graphic for the herb, you'll have to create an object yourself and import it into the objects and assets. I just used the default flowers and gave each one of the 5 herbs a little bit of a variety of color. So under its event details, simply add the herb to the inventory and then add 1 to the variable herbs and turn the local switch on. I've also added a conditional switch using activate HUD set to on. This way you'll be able to harvest the herb if the quest is active through the HUD being activated. Many MMOs use this kind of collection method where certain things can only be collected if the quest is incomplete, and then when it's finished you can no longer collect them. So on sheet 2, local switch is on, and then the event details are blank, so you won't be able to harvest the herb again afterwards. Anyway, you can copy and paste all 5 and change things around. So before doing anything for the next playtest, I need to disable the cheat in the house. Just like that. You could add another auto-run synchronize event to check if the variable herbs equals the number of herbs required, and then if it is, display a quest complete message just to add some more dynamism to it. That would be just up to you. And so we're ready to playtest. Right, here we go. I think there's a fundamental flaw in the herb event setup. If you accept the collect quest again, I don't think the particular herbs will yield anything second and subsequent times. It's because the local switch is turned on, but there's no actual method of turning them off and resetting the event in line with the quest. I'll have to look into that. So I guess you could consider that herbs in general are quite rare, meaning that you have to travel further distances to collect herbs for the herbalist or find alternative ways of obtaining them. This may not be entirely practical in the long run, so I'll come up with a fix for next week's tutorial and I'll place it near the end. Okay, so the rundown is, here we go again. got a favor. Okay, so now let's go and collect some herbs. When you collect it, you'll notice up in the top right hand corner it'll update. It should really add a message saying herb collected or something, so you know something's happened. 3, 4, and 5, and then you go back in the house. Yay! So we'll start again to test this theory. Yeah, the herbs don't update. So as I said, I'll do a fix for next week's. And anyway, that ends another tutorial. If you found this video useful, give it a thumbs up and don't forget to subscribe if you haven't already, of course, and then click the bell icon as well so you can be notified of my future videos, including the live streams I will be doing starting next year. The next part of this series on HUDs is setting up a kind of fatigue, hunger, thirst, I gotta pee real bad comment made by Moggyhead a while ago. It's a really good idea that I've wanted to do for a while, so next week is the time to do it. And the Thursday after that, I'll do another monthly digest video so that everything then becomes consistent for subsequent months before continuing with the HUD series, which will then fall into its regular Sunday, Monday upload slot in December. And in the meantime, feel free to visit my Twitter and Facebook accounts where I usually post a lot of unique content on each that I don't post elsewhere. Or you can visit my official Smile Game Builder site. If you are not already aware of it, at the end of the month, I'll be creating a monthly newsletter for SGB and RPG Maker, which you can subscribe to as well. Although I may yet defer this until next year, in line with starting at the beginning of the year and then progressing from there. So it's more regular and more consistent. And that's it for another tutorial video in the Smile Game Builder Tutorials and Showcases series. Thanks for watching. Until the next time.